All right, everyone, let's go ahead and get started. It is precisely 11:15 a.m. I'd like to call to order this meeting of the Assembly Infrastructure, Enterprise, and Utility Oversight Committee of the Whole. We are noticed today from 11:15 a.m. to 12:15 p.m. First order of business, I'd like to start with member introductions in the room.
Daniel Boland.
Yarrow Silvers. Aaron Baldwin Day.
Zach Johnson, and on the phone we have member Constant.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to let you know I can only stay about 15 minutes because of a work conflict.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else on the phone? Does not look like it. And I'll note for the record that member Rivera just walked in. In terms of scheduling for the meeting today, we have items for the Port of Alaska under new business and standing items. We're going to roll those into one and make the whole first part of the meeting dedicated to the Port of Alaska. And then at the end, we'll set aside time for updates from Merrill Field and the waste to energy project. But all the port items are going to run together. And with that, take it away, gentlemen.
Good morning. So my name is Jim Jager. I'm the acting port director. And I guess I will start the show off. You can see on the PowerPoint, we have a range of topics that we're going to cover. And rather than, well, I guess I can read through the list real quick. We're going to talk about our general port projects. And then some of the sub projects underneath that is really the way to go. If you want to go to the next slide. So we have really two different bodies of projects going on at the port. We have what we'll call our non-PAMP projects and our PAMP projects. The non-PAMP projects are all the sorts of projects that general port operations need to do that have nothing to do with the dock replacement project. So non-PAMP projects that will be coming to your attention in the near future include, we have a federal grant to replace our security checkpoint when you drive into the port. That project, the bidding for that project is in progress right now. And our anticipation is that we will have that contract later this summer. The booth will actually be built remotely and installed next spring. Our next big project is the Bluff Drive fence and security upgrades. Again, we have a FEMA port security grant to help repair and improve our Bluff Road fence. That's between the port, the Marathon and Crowley yards, and the bluff below Government Hill community. It's largely out of sight of the community, but we need to improve the fence. It's got a number of holes and other issues that have developed over the years. So we're going to go through, fix the fence, improve some lighting around part of the fence, and replace some security cameras. Most of the security lapses we've had where people have gotten onto the port recently have been through this fence line. So it's a project that we really need to do. It's a relatively inexpensive project, probably under $100,000, and we anticipate that will happen this fall. Our next project is T1, T2, that's Terminal 1, Terminal 2 fenders. Basically, the fenders are the part of the dock that the ship pushes against when they dock. Our fenders are, like the rest of the docks, are corroding and failing, and we need to do some work on those to bring them up to quality so that they'll continue to perform until we replace the dock. Those fender repairs are scheduled to happen this fall and spring of 2026. It's going to be about a $293,000 project, and we have a ongoing series. So you'll see this one come back every year until we replace the docks, because it's an ongoing maintenance problem at this point. Next slide. The port maintenance complex, the sprung structure. We are expecting to go out to bid for design, or we're working on the design right now for the foundation, and we expect to go to bid to build that foundation and erect the structure. Probably starting this fall. It may extend till next spring, just depending on how fast we can get it through the system and what the weather is doing. But our hope is to get the foundation built this fall and get the basic structure up so that we can start even using it partially this winter. Next project you'll be seeing in the very near future is our battery energy storage system. Again, we have a federal grant to work on our electrical system. The first phase of that system is going to be a battery. That bidding process, or that bid, is in process right now. We anticipate we will complete the contract for buying and installing the battery probably late July, early August. Our hope is to get the equipment ordered and maybe even start some of the dirt work this fall. And then finally, we're in the final stages of an energy services contract. This is basically an engineering and professional services contract to help with our energy system planning. It will be initially funded. We have a $2 million EPA Clean Ports grant that project needs a project developer. So project manager, the first job for the energy services contractor will be running the project for this $2 million EPA grant that we got. And we hope to have that process done later this month. So I guess we can go on to the next slide and I'll hand it over to Eric.
Thank you. My name is Eric Adams. I'm the Jacobs Program Manager for the PAMP program, supporting a Port of Alaska and a municipality on the PAMP program. So what we have
We seem to have lost you.
testing. Can you hear me now? Okay. So what we have here
Better.
thank you. What we have here before you is a request for a sole source contract to Safeguard Marine LLC. And this is based on limited resources who can perform this type of training. Down in lower 48s where there might be other pilot vessels, pilot organizations that we can put this out for compete. Really in Alaska, this is it. These pilots are really specific to Cook Inlet and landing at the Port of Alaska. They have previous PAMP experience conducting ship trainings for the container vessels, fuel tankers, cement ships, and working with tug operators at the POA. And this is really key for during the construction phasing, that we don't have any vessel collisions with the barges that are going to be doing the construction or the newly constructed dock. So this is really a key part of the risk reduction program that we have going on. So just to point out, is with Safeguard Marine LLC, the period of performance July 2025 through March 2026, actually it's August 2025 now. Cost is about $120,000. Goal is to be on the July 29th assembly meeting for approval. We have all the sole source justification and all that in the AM memo. It's all ready to go, signed off through purchasing and all the required bodies for you guys to vote on. Any questions?
Not seen any.
Thank you.
No, it's not working. Yeah, I'm John Daly, the PAMP engineering manager. I work for the port and the city. This next topic is the contract extension for Jacobs Engineering. They're the program management consultant, the PMC. They've been overseeing the PAMP since, I think, 2014. Their current contract expires September 25th, or September 2nd, 2025. And what we're requesting is a 5-year extension on a not to exceed number. So here's the particulars of that. The contractor's Jacobs. The period of performance is September of this year to September of 2030. The reason we picked that is that the Terminal 1 should be completed at that time. So it's 5 years. This cost authorizes up to $63 million and a little bit more. And the goal is to be on the August 12th assembly meeting for approval. We realize that's a fairly large number. but it's also a fairly large project. So the services are listed here. We've reformatted it a little bit from our current model. So we have a smaller team of core program management personnel, roughly 5 full-time equivalents for those people. The largest cost of this will be the construction administration for Terminal 1. And that means they'll have a resident engineer, some inspectors, a team reviewing submittals, RFIs, change requests, and things like that. It also includes some permitting support and some design management for Terminal 1 and 2. Again, the costs are high, but they're within industry for the construction administration component, they're within industry standards, which are 4 to 6% of the construction costs. It is a not to exceed number, and we plan to manage it on an annual basis with task orders based on what we see happening each year. So the task orders should vary by year and by season. So in the winter, when there's not much going on, the tasks will be reduced, the staffing will be reduced, and when it's very busy, they'll be increased. And then here's a breakdown per year that shows some of the breakout of the values that are being proposed. Is there any questions on that?
I have a couple, and then Member Baldwin Day, I think, is getting in queue as well. So we have, or we have had for quite a while now, a contract with Jacobs for the engineering. Can you, I mean, we're looking at what would average out to around $12 million a year for the next iteration of this contract. What are we spending annually now?
It's a little bit over $7 million a year.
Okay, so it'll be moving up from around 7 to around 12, which tracks with it. Sounds like, you know, the expanded scope of the projects they're managing. The other piece of the question I have is you mentioned the industry standard is around 4 to 6% of the project cost is typical for what we would see for this sort of management consulting, which, as I think we're fairly well aware, this is a massive project, right? So do you have off the top of your head, for this 5-year period for the Terminal 1 construction and other PAMP related activities, what the overall spend looks like?
Well, this is the breakdown that we have per year, and you can see it varies 6, 13, 14 million down to 11 and 2. The 4 to 6% is for the construction administration portion. So typically we would break the project down into some tasks, so that doesn't include the PMO. PMO is overall management, planning, attending meetings like this, helping with budgets. The construction admin is a portion that's related just to a specific contract. That would be a whole staff of people that would be contractually obligated to sort of manage the administration of the project. So that's the 4 to 6%. And then there's some other tasks that are in there too that aren't in the 4 to 6% range, which would be permitting and design management. So for example, we're going to do preliminary design on Terminal 2. That's not in this range. So the percentages of construction would vary per year depending on what's going on, but it is within that 4 to 6%.
So sorry, so if I'm
The
following you,
T1 cost, I'm sorry, the T1 cost I think is 809 million.
yeah, so if we're breaking it down there, then you're saying the 4 to 6% of the individual project, but $809 million for Terminal 1. If I take 46 or 47 million divided by 809, which I'm doing right now. 6%. Okay. So kind of within range, but at the high end. All right, thanks. Member Baldwin Day.
I think I was going down the same trail as you, but just curious what the overall, what that total project cost actually looks like. So I think I just heard you say 809 million for Terminal 1, plus some work on the Terminal 2, sort of preliminary planning and those sorts of things. Okay, great, thank you.
I don't see anyone else getting their hands up, so I'm going to ask one more question on this. So for Terminal 2, as we get towards the end of this period of performance and activities pick up around Terminal 2? Are we anticipating that there will be a amendment to this contract to move that amount up as Terminal 2 activities become more intense? Or do we think this is an accurate projection of what the contract requirements will be through this period of 2030?
Yeah, that's a good question. And that was brought up in our discussions and negotiations with Jacobs. The honest answer is that we don't have enough information right now to fully understand what Terminal 2 is going to be like and when it's going to roll out. Or there's even scenarios where the overall schedule could change. So we are bringing Terminal 2 to a 35% design that is going to include some preliminary cost estimates and some options, and then we kind of park it there. So yes, we will have to come back late in this process to have some sort of amendment to put Terminal 2 in. We think it's premature to put numbers up there now because we just don't have enough information to do that.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to add, one of the risks of putting numbers up there now is that sends you down a path that as the facts become clear, we may decide that wasn't the best path. And then you have the problem, well, we already spent all this money on this other idea. So this will improve our flexibility and hopefully our cost control going forward.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think I'm just contemplating this from an expectations management perspective. Not seeing anyone else on this, so let's continue along.
Okay. So the next item is the Udelhoven contract amendment. So Udelhoven was given a contract. Let's see if I can find the numbers here. It was $475,000 originally to do the line flushing and soaking for the PCT. And there was a change order to add some valves to that, a couple of ball valves that would help them with the fuel flushing. And we're going to now send before you another cost increase request for $191,000. And this is to add some additional valves and some 2- and 4-inch piping to help with the stripping lines. It better aligns, it makes it more intuitive for the users to use the stripping lines. It's kind of all related to fuel flushing and commissioning of the petroleum lines.
So do we think this will be it for the PCT?
We're hopeful, very hopeful.
Hope springs eternal. Anyone else on this? All right, continue.
The next item is the Moffett Nickel Transportation Optimization Study. And what this was a contract that did upland planning. So when the new docks are brought online, they're moved south of where they currently are. And there's kind of a system that both users, both Tote and Matson, have for how they run the trucks, which lanes they go, how do they approach the docks, how they turn on and off the docks, how do they access their yards and their gates. And that's going to change because the location of the docks and the approach trestles are going to change. So originally the contract was led, let's see, it was a $239,000 contract that was in 2023. And there's been a couple of amendments to that. It's been a very productive, I think, contract, but there's ongoing discussions with both Tote and Matson on a number of things. The actual layout of where the transportation corridors are going to be, what impacts that would have on things. And then also the lease lots are being reconfigured. So currently each of the primary vendors has their own property, if you will, with well-defined lease lots that show which pieces of property they own, and we're going to reconfigure that. There's kind of a, I don't know how to say this correctly, but if you take 2 acres away from one area, you have to give 2 acres back to the other area. And so they're all very interested in that, and justifiably so. They have their businesses to maintain and they don't want to come up on the short end of the stick. So bottom line is we've had a number of ongoing discussions with the users. We feel this is important to get their buy-in to the overall program. It's largely, the planning has been largely driven by the users. We're kind of keeping the hands off and just letting them talk with the planners. And we're going to ask for some additional funds to increase, to amend this contract. Unfortunately, I don't have the number today. I've been asking for it and I don't have the dollar value, but it will be coming to you soon. And we will, as soon as I get the information, I will share that with you.
I was just going to add, this study is actually very important to the port because it's very important to the users. It's basically, think of it as the traffic flow pattern or transportation pattern that they use when they're offloading ships. And if you change each box by 15 seconds, you go, oh, what's the big deal? It's 15 seconds, but it's 15 seconds per box being a 40 or 45-foot container, 600 times per ship coming off the ship, 600 times going back onto the ship. And you start doing the math, that 15 seconds gets to be really expensive. And this is one of those decisions that we're going to make a decision and nobody is going to be completely happy with it. And this study is going to basically be the bedrock that we're basing our decision on. And we want to have really good numbers and a really good plan so that when somebody's not happy, we have to explain why it's that way because we're optimizing everybody's interests.
Okay, thank you. And not seeing any hands go up.
Actually do have-
Member Baldwin Day, and then I have a question.
Could you repeat that number? The initial contract was for,
The initial contract was $239,250.
and that contract was executed when?
It was in 2023, and I guess I don't have any more information than that. I don't have the exact date on this one, but we could find it.
Sure. Yeah, I'd be interested to know the scope of that initial contract and just. what's
Yeah,
been
the
completed and
scope
what's still outstanding.
was to do this study, and it, like I said, it's ongoing. There's a lot of input from the users. A lot of the work has to do with additional meetings with the users that are kind of, you're trying to get somebody to agree on something, so it's hard to forecast how long that may take, I
That
guess.
sounds
is
like
the
an
point.
interesting diplomatic mission.
Yeah.
So question for you, or did you have
I
something
was
to add
just
on
going
that?
to add,
Mr.
the
Yeager?
one thing, part of the reason this study has, I don't know if expanded, but it's become so big is that, every time you make a decision and start moving some direction, they'll go, well, what if we move the trestle 100 feet that direction? That would clean up the line. And then that's going to have all sorts of cost ramifications. So these are not trivial questions that are being asked and answered.
Okay, so I think, two related questions. The first, with these fairly sizable contracts for the expenditures that'll happen in 2025, we expect this to fit within the port's budget for this year?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. And looking ahead to 26, obviously we're still in the early stages of talking about the budget, but are we anticipating? There's obviously the PAMP related activities, right? And like the T1 contract, but within sort of the port's budget itself, are we expecting any major deviations based on this anticipated work?
So there's a separate topic about the overall budgets. Currently, for the work that we have on most of these projects, we're okay. We have some MERAD funding. We have some matching state funds that we're able to use for PAMP. But honestly, when we get into T1, it's a different ballgame. And there has been a plan of finance. I think you've been briefed on that. But there's definitely some challenges, I would say, going forward especially on T1.
Yeah, I guess I'm thinking of like outside of the PAMP specific projects, just the regular day-to-day activities of the port.
We are looking, we're still pulling together our budgets. We've had an ongoing operation. The operational challenges associated with PAMP are sometimes increased. So that could lead to some changes in the budget. We're still working through exactly what they are. We've got some, I guess we're in the process of pulling things together, but there are some expenses that we've been kicking down the road for years. For example, I'll tell you, we have 2 port administrative vehicles. One of them, it's sort of roulette whether the car will start because it's, what is it, a 2001 vehicle. So there are some things that we just can't push off any longer. So we are going to have some expenses that haven't been there before. I think they'll be reasonable expenses.
I think the sooner that we could get a preview of those, the better we'll be able to be responsive.
Absolutely.
Still not seeing any hands going up. Gentlemen, please.
Okay. Once again, for the record, Eric Adams, Jacobs Program Manager. I'm here to talk about a couple of insurances that we need to buy for the T1 contract. Since you just talked about budgets, yes, these were estimated to be in there. They are forecasting the PAMP surcharge and what we're looking to spend this year and next year in here. And if I can't answer any of the deep dive technical questions, which I should be able to do, we have the Muni Risk Manager that's been involved, Jim Johnson, in the audience. So going forward, we're going to have 2 items on the recommendation for award on the July 29th Assembly meeting. First one is construction-related insurances for builder's risk. That was planned in there. We decided that at the beginning of this project that the MOA would own the builder's risk and then the owner's liability insurance as well. Next slide, please. So I just want to give a high-level overview of what builder's risk covers and what it doesn't cover. So examples of covered circumstances is water damage, named windstorms, earthquakes, and fires. And basically, this is an insurance to replace, say, part of the structure if it's damaged or something, right? Because of one of these named events, we can go back and we have insurance to cover that. Items that are non-covered circumstances is marine mobilization, marine demob, excavation, earthwork, and dredging. And for people not familiar with mobilization and demob, you think about these big crane barges coming up from the Pacific Northwest into Anchorage, that type of mobilization. And then at the end of the winter, end of the summer, they go back. So people who've gone down the port see all the big crane barges down there right now. That's like transportation of that back and forth, and as well as materials back and forth. So high level, that's a builder's risk. Next slide, please. So builder's risk policy begins August 1st, 2025. Policy ends March 2nd, 2030. Cost is $5.8 million, just shy of that. The total coverage is $597, $700,000. And the difference between the contract amount of $807 and this coverage here is we had to deduct those things that aren't covered, like I talked about, the marine mobilization, demobilization. So that's why you see the difference between the coverage of the contract value and this right here. And just compliments to John Johnson. He's been with us this entire way. And so we feel we've got the muni protected here using Marsh and all that stuff. Any questions on the builder's risk before I jump into the owner's interest policy?
So you mentioned there are non-covered circumstances. What happens in the event if we incur a liability for one of these, the mobilization or dredging, for example?
Well, like during marine mobilization and demob, those were covered on those are contractor insurances that have to be covered. So we don't have that part on there. The dredging part is not covered by any insurance because it's dredging. And when you think about earthquake and excavation, it's digging a hole. If an earthquake happens, fills in, you got to go back and dig that, right? So those items, marine and mob and demob's covered by the contractor's insurance. Dredging is just, we got to re-dredge it, which is minimal on here. And then same with excavation and earthwork.
Okay, so it's not,
those are omitted by the policies. We can't get policies for those.
so these don't reflect a choice on our part to limit our coverage. It's just sort of the practical circumstances.
Yeah, when we went out to the market, we shop it. Well, Marsh does, the city's insurance, and they send it out to multiple vendors. And Chubb's was a chosen one. They'll be the lead on it, and then there's like 5 or 6 of them that fall in behind that. But this is what the market will bear. Mm-hmm. So we've been working on this since beginning of the like a year and a half. So So that's the high level there. Any other questions on builder's risk? Okay, owner's interest liability insurance. So this covers the MOA where the contractor's insurance is insufficient, often referred to as a gap insurance. The policy duration is 52 months during construction. Total premium is 1.3 million, and that coverage is up to $35 million. And the coverage begins August 1st on that. And that is when you say potentially the first ball people get concerned about, but we believe there's adequate coverage from the contractor side. We worked with Marsh to build out the contract on this with their recommendations to protect the muni. Like I said, we've been working on it a year and a half. This gap insurance is just if they spun up, say if the city decided to go after somebody for some instance, this coverage, like your spin up costs for attorneys and those items included in this coverage. And there's a little bit more there in the fine print. I'd need John Johnson to come up, but this is like what I consider a spin up cost for the muni's defense if needed. So.
Not seeing any questions.
Okay, so those are both on the July 29th for approval.
Okay, so the next item, this is John Daly again. The next item is the electrical substation. This is just an update of a status of where we are. So we broke out the electrical substation from T1 as a separate contract. It was awarded to Electrical Power Constructors, EPC, in the amount of $25,646,000, which was within the engineer's estimate. The contract was awarded, executed at the end of June, and we gave them a notice to proceed early in July. There are several phases to the work. They're operating under what we're calling a limited notice to proceed right now. And what that means is they're doing preliminary design work, and they're going to order long lead time items. Turns out that some electrical items, like some of these transformers and big generators, take a couple of years to procure, and they're on the critical path. So we have to start soon, get those materials ordered and under construction, and it takes 2 years. That's just the way it is. You can order it now and you wait. So we're trying to order it soon. There's also a little bit of planning. We're looking at an alternative site, and the engineering's going on now. So that's all started. We've had 3 or 4 meetings. We've given them survey data. We've put them in contact with Chugach Electric. So it's all moving forward. We're not expecting any actual site work until next year, and then the substantial completions in 2028 on time. If this project has to converge so that the electrical is available for the cranes when the cranes arrive in late 2028. So that's a status update of that project.
Is this substation connected in any way with the port microgrid development?
No, there's a potential for some interplay between those, but it's really not at this point directly connected to that.
So this is effectively ensuring that there's an electrical supply available for the construction cranes themselves.
It's for there's 3 new ship-to-shore cranes, similar to the ones, if you've been to the port, there's these big, it looks like a erector set, a big monster crane. There's 3 new ones that'll be about twice the size of the existing ones. And this is all related to providing power for that. There's control buildings, there's remote control stations for them. It takes, I'm not an electrical engineer, but there's primary power that comes into the station. They step it down to a medium high voltage, which is 13.8 kilovolts, and then run that out to the cranes. There's auxiliary power, there's generator for emergency operation, and a few other things associated with it.
I was just going to add, so it's not related to the microgrid project, but it is in alignment with the microgrid project. So the projects they have each other in mind and are accommodating each other.
Remind me what the anticipated date is for the new T1 cranes to become operational.
Yeah, this is John Daly. I believe it's August or September. Do you remember?
Yeah, John's right. All three things converge on August 15th of 2028. So that is a very key date to keep in mind, and that's the risk that we're managing around between this contract, the crane purchase, and the T1 contractor, August 15th.
Thank you. Anything else on the PAM? Or the Port of Alaska?
Oh, so there's still a couple more slides. I'll try to go quickly. This was an update of just all the different parts and pieces that are going on right now under PAMP. So the new administration building, we've moved into that. The warranty period was over in mid-June, and we've occupied that building. North Extension Stabilization, step one. We're in the third season of that. They're currently finishing dredging and starting the remainder of the rock placement. So they're building a revetment. There's giant mounds of rock stacked in the uplands out there. And you guys are welcome to come down for a tour if you want to see that. But they're placing all that rock and finishing the dredging. They're anticipated to be complete in October of this year. So that's NES 1. Terminal 1 construction, that's our big project. We're in really the first year, it's all material procurement and submittals. So they're now building the piling down in Washington State and some in Texas. They're also getting ready to do the precast concrete, mostly down in Washington State. They are planning site work next year. We're currently, there's a typo in here, temporary facility construction plan, not constriction plan. What that means is we are talking to the users about what it's going to look like next year when it's under construction. It's going to look, like the Grand Coulee Dam down there. There's going to be stuff all over the place. The users need to know where their traffic lanes are, what it's going to look like to them, how it's going to impact their operations. So the contractor is going to have meetings with the users to explain how that's all coming together. And then the permitting is actually moving along fairly well right now. We've received some positive news on the permitting this week, and it's going to be completed. It's anticipated to be completed by the end of the year, hopefully sooner. Then the last piece on here, I'm trying to move quickly, is the 35% design. We've had we had a solicitation. There were 2 proposals. We evaluated the proposals and then had interviews. We've selected one of the vendors for 35% design, and we're waiting for a few things to finish going through purchasing before we can negotiate the contract. So once we get the contract negotiated, we'll be coming forward with that to the assembly probably in September. That's the update. And then the last couple things are looking forward. I think that's Jim.
So this is basically not something that we're expecting an action on now, but we're giving you a warning that it should be on your radar. You will be seeing it later this month or in August. One of the biggies is every spring when the ice goes away, we discover new gifts underneath the dock. Gifts usually being new problems. This summer, we've discovered that POL2 what was, if you don't count the PCT, the newest dock on the facility, has some significant structural issues that are showing themselves. So we will be doing a POL2 condition assessment and a load rating to make sure that the dock can continue to be safely used and to determine what we need to do to keep using it. That will be coming down here in the next few weeks. And then based on what we learn, that could impact all sorts of construction next year or into the future. We are doing a rehabilitation on actually 3 of our storm drain systems. So we have federal funds to help rebuild our storm drain systems. Our storm drains are fairly old. They're basically draining J-Bear and Government Hill. The stormwater from those areas move across the port and out into the ocean. The storm lines that water moves through is old. It's been subject to lots of weather and seismic activity, so we're having to reconstruct those. We've actually got 2 of the systems that we're on the verge of accepting the construction bids, and work could start this fall. And then the third project work would start in spring. So that's coming down. We have Track J plating and fencing. So part of what was port property that is becoming a park, we've agreed to the specific plat lines, and I think you have an issue that will be coming up later this month or in early August to formally approve that plat. And then once we've done that, we can move forward with finalizing the plat, moving the fence, and making that land transfer really happen. Because right now, no matter who owns the land, the fence is still in the same place and it still looks just like it did 2 years ago. Last things, we've got some legal services changes, contract changes that you'll be asked to consider, and then we will be talking about the PAMP surcharge update at the beginning of August. That's what we promised the users. We would let them know in August, even though it won't take effect until the first of the year, so that they have time to set up their billing, let their customers know, that sort of thing. And that's really what's going on at the port. It's fairly mundane, not much happening.
Very pedestrian.
Yeah, which leads me to a couple questions. First, you mentioned with POL2, it sounds like there are unknowns there, but you did mention casually could impact construction next year, like impact construction in a material way,
Well,
since obviously some of these timelines feel kind of tight for
So
T1.
I guess we have two different types of construction. We're clearly going to have to do some repairs. Some of the repairs, for instance, we're already planning to do some fender repairs. But if we have structural damage that says you can't pull a crane out onto the dock because it doesn't have enough load bearing capacity, well, then we can't fix the fenders if we can't put a crane on the dock. And that could have operational ramifications. It could impact our PAMP planning because the access and usability of POL2 is critical to the PAMP plan. So at this point, I can't really speculate about what's going to happen. We need to go in and do a study and actually have, for instance, some bridge inspectors go in and analyze what the load limitations ought to be. And as we get that information, then we can start figuring out what we're doing moving forward.
Okay, but how worried should we be at this point that this could impact some of the Terminal 1 construction deadlines?
I think Terminal 1 is probably okay. Yeah, the impact would more likely be next steps after Terminal 1. We may have some minor impacts on, for instance, when we can do fender repairs on POL2. The PAMP impact is not so much the Terminal 1 project, it would be later projects.
Okay, thanks. And then I have question or maybe thought, and we can follow up on this later, but you mentioned that you'll be looking for assembly action on the 35% design for Terminal 2 in September, which means August will be our next IEUOC meeting, and I think we'll probably want to spend a fair bit of time discussing that. But you also mentioned that we will have the 2026 PAMP surcharge to consider in August as well?
Correct.
Okay, so two fairly big things that I anticipate this committee will want to spend some time on in August. Is there anything else as we look at how we budget our time for next month?
I think those are probably the two big issues at this point. And just to, I guess, go back to the POL2 condition for a moment. As I said, I don't believe that we're likely to have significant T1 impacts. Going forward, it could be that we change the order of projects, and that's part of what we don't know. So go back to our earlier conversation when we said we didn't want to set ourselves down a plan that could then add costs that we may need to change from. This is one of those unknowns.
Gotcha, thank you. Anyone else on PAMP related projects? Not seeing anything. As always, thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Mr. Malpass,
Thank
if you'd
you.
come up.
Thank you very much.
While we're quickly getting set up, is there going to be anybody here for audience participation today? Not seeing any hands.
I emailed them out to everybody, but I might have made the subject wrong. So if you have two budget and finance committees, one of them is actually this meeting.
So our staffer, Mr. Freeney, just pointed out that it's possible that this information, while it was emailed to members, may have been under an email that is labeled as relating to Budget and Finance Committee. So it's there, but maybe just not under the correct email subject line. Anyways, Mr. Malpass, please.
Good morning, Earl Malpas, Airport Manager, Merrill Field. I have with me my Deputy Manager, Ms. Amy Garcia, helps with the finance as well, or takes care of the finances, I should say. I would like to, for the Assembly's awareness, coming up to the budget season, let you know that we're going to be proposing a rate increase. A little bit of background for the Merrill Field finances is Merrill Field had stopped an annual rate increase back before the pandemic, back in 2019 or during the pandemic, 2019, 2020. The land race, if the land rates had increased per CPI at 2%, 2.1%, the land leases would have been at 29 cents a square foot instead of the 24 cents that it currently is today. So when we take that and the other rates and forecast our revenue, it looks like it'll be insufficient to maintain our labor plus non-labor, and then include our fund balance for so that we have funds for the matching funds for federal grants. That amounts to about $400,000 a year. So we're proposing an increase. As a little bit more of a background or a reminder, the Assembly has they control 7 rates and fees for the Merrill Field, according to the Code and Ordinance 11.60.200. And I've got that table there before you. We're recommending a rate increase on 3 of those. The first one's item number 3 is the daily transient parking. That's aircraft that are flying through and just stopping for the day. Second column there is what the currently is. Our proposed is in the third column there of just increasing that. The tie down spaces are item number 4. Those 2 items there, that the tail end and pull in, the Assembly controls as well. Where the third column there is what we're proposing for an increase. And then item 6 is we have like long-term vehicle parking for folks that live remote. They fly in and they need a vehicle. We rent space for that. And as you can see, second column is current, and the increase is in column 3. Just some notes to consider, or for your consideration, is the proposed rates will affect our tie-down customers around $10 a month, or 11% increase. That amounts to about if you on the scale or the graph below, it shows that that if you average it out, it's $2.50 a month over the last 10 years, and so it's an increase of $2.50 a month per year over the last 10 years. So it's we're within the historical increases on that in that regard. Note 2 would be that note 3 is that the airport has fees and rates that are controlled by the airport manager, and we're increasing all of those across the board at 10% as well. And if the Assembly approves our recommended rate increase, and you include that with the airport manager's controlled rates and fee increase, it looks like we'll eliminate any budget shortfall for the year of 2026. It's also of note that we have brought this before the MAC, the Advisory Commission. They've reviewed it. There was a subcommittee. They've reviewed it, and they're planning on submitting a resolution to the Assembly in support of this increase as well. We also, the airport has a quarterly user group meetings that we have the user groups, they come and we've been discussing this as well. It was a primary topic of the last one, and there were no negative responses. Again, if you look at the second page there, for more of a visual, the top graph demonstrates what our historical rates have been based on CPI, and you can see where they stopped on the bar graph, and the line graph shows if the rates had increased per an average of 2.1%, which was CPI, where it would be. And so we're going to be catching up on that a little bit. And then the second graph below shows the historical versus proposed aircraft tie down rate increase. I'd be glad to ask any answers. We got lots of data. We could get as far into the weeds as you'd like, but if there's any, we want to be sensitive to everyone's time.
Go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Malpas. I'm Erin Baldwin Day. I'm new to this committee. I'm curious, first of all, you're the cheapest parking in town. Secondly, I'm curious how these rates compare with other municipal airports of similar size. And I'm curious about, when you might, based on particularly these two charts, when it might be appropriate to consider an additional rate increase, because we're, at least what I'm seeing here, it looks like we're still below the CPI as it's projected to grow. So yeah, just would love your thoughts on
Sure.
that. And
Excellent questions. The airports in the state are divided into two categories. One, the largest category is the state-run airports. And to be honest, the state-run airports are artificially depressing rates without getting too deep. They are heavily subsidizing the rates of land leases as well as tie downs. So it's really an unfair comparison from state-run airports versus a sponsored run airport or a municipality-run airport. The FAA is aware of this and they're frustrated almost as much as I am about that. But there are 25 sponsored airports and we are by still the highest rate is land leases as well as aircraft tie downs. The way I kind of describe it is if you know, how many times have you ever seen an iPhone on sale? They don't have sales. Why don't they have sales? Because there's nobody that can compete with them. And that's why we're working Merrill-Field to make it a gem for the municipality. We're centrally located. We have services that no other airport has. And we have the parking places. We have an excellent crew that keeps the runways and taxiways clear as well. So that's where we stand statewide. Answering your question as to how should we recover going forward, we have proposed a 5% increase, an additional. We will propose an additional 5% increase on our land leases in 2027 is what we have on the books right now. But we would like to have some empirical data to back that decision up and moving forward. And the way we're going to do that is we're anticipating we've got an RFP out now for a airport master plan. And part of that master plan, there's a whole bunch of pieces to that puzzle, is an airport sustainability study. And they review things like this as far as a rate justification process in it. And then we'll be able to use that to make sure that we're calibrated with this state and region and are charging a fair price. And finally, your other point about the cheapest parking in town, 100%.
Well, I do want to be clear that I'm absolutely in support of the rate increases you've outlined. And in fact, I'm wondering if perhaps you're undervaluing your services. So that was where that line of questioning was going. So thank you very much.
Yes, ma'am.
Anything else from Merrifield? No? All right. Thanks for being here. SWS, you're on deck. Let's note it's 12:11. Doesn't look like we have anyone for audience participation. I expect this will be quick, but I hope the members, or I guess speak now if you have concerns about us possibly going just a couple minutes past 12:15. When you're ready, introduce yourselves and give us the update, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kelly Toth, Solid Waste Services Director.
David Persinger, AWW General Manager.
Real quick, we just wanted to give you a couple of updates on the waste to energy project. We're very happy and pleased to report to you that Senator Murkowski is a member of the Subcommittee of Energy and Water Development, which is a subcommittee of the Senate Committee on Appropriations, has put forth the regional landfill waste to energy project for $1 million for next year. So that's the congressionally directed spending. So that is moving its way through the committee. So we're hopeful that that we can prevail on that one. Secondly, the RFP, the first one has gone out for the waste characterization study for waste to energy. That will close August 6th. So that is in process right now. It's live right now on the purchasing website. And then thirdly, just wanted to thank you all for coming to our open house and learning more about how the landfill operates, and just extend to all of you the opportunity and invitation to come and visit the central transfer station and the landfill and just learn how it works. That's our update for you today.
Short and sweet.
Bada bing.
Quick question for the 1 million that Murkowski is supporting in the CDS. When do you think we would have a final determination on that?
I think we're just waiting. I'm guessing sometime towards the end of the year. I can get that information for you exactly.
And along those lines, what would that 1 million be earmarked for to come through to us?
It's for the continuation of the waste to energy project. So it'll be continuing work on what we're doing currently.
Mark Spafford, Deputy Municipal Manager. Yeah, specifically for the design and permitting portion that we're going through right now. Just to clarify that.
Anyone else? Last call for audience participation. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just wanted to say that's super exciting.
Indeed. That feels like a nice note to wrap things up on. So we're going to get everyone out of here 1 minute and 10 seconds early. You're welcome.
Hey, thank you.